They say that Jesus wasn't a historical person, that he was a myth and was just made up in a story that didn't find a historical basis. But that's not true. We have several hostile witnesses that prove Jesus lived.
Name them. I'm just name them. All the quote unquote hostile witnesses are either interpolated, forged, or they're too late to actually have any kind of independent source information. Hostile sources, I don't know what you fucking mean when you say hostile sources. Are you talking about Josephus? Because Josephus, there's a growing number of scholars in the field that are showing that Josephus was actually completely interpolated, either the Testimonium or the James reference. The James reference is not maliciously interpolated, it's accidentally interpolated, while the Testimonium is definitely a Christian construction that was inserted into Josephus's work. So, if you're talking about those kind of hostile sources, you're not really going to have a good time.
We have friendly testimony from the Bible writers that prove Jesus lived.
No, I mean, the only independent friendly writer that you have is Paul. Like, the Gospels don't count as evidence, and we don't know what kind of sources informed the Gospels, so you can't use those as evidence because we don't have them. We don't know what they were. We don't know where they got their information from. There's no way for us to critically analyze them, so there's no way for us to know whether or not they had independent information about Jesus. So, if hostile witnesses and friendly testimonies are the two things that you think prove Jesus existed, you need to do a little bit more historical research and a little less apologetics.
It is a fact that Jesus Christ lived. Fact number 2, Jesus Christ died.
Okay, so before we get to fact number 2, fact number 1 has literally no bearing on the whole resurrection deal. Like, even if Jesus existed in the past, that does not mean that he resurrected from the dead. And that's the exact same thing I'm going to say for fact number 2. Even if Jesus existed and he died, let's even go as far as to say that the Romans crucified him for trying to lead a rebellion against the Roman Empire or some dumb shit. Just because he died does not mean he resurrected. And so I don't know why either of these two would be on the list of things that prove the resurrection when they could both be true, even though we don't have any evidence for either of them being true, but they could both be true. And Jesus still could not or did not resurrect, which is as true a fact as we can understand it.
Once you show that Jesus was a historical person, then coming to the conclusion that Jesus Christ died, even the skeptic has to agree, would be true. Because if Jesus lived, then he certainly died. And as you look at the writings that document the life of Jesus, you see that everybody in the discussion, the Jewish community, the early Christians, they all admit that Jesus did die. In fact, early Jewish writings that are not friendly to Jesus at all document that Jesus was killed.
Oh, so we have early Jewish writings about Jesus being killed? Like, what are you talking about here there, Kyle Butt? What Jewish writings could he be talking about? I know of none, unless you're counting Paul as a Jew instead of a Christian. Other than that, you don't have any early Jewish writings. I've literally never heard of any Jewish writings, so this would be new information that he should probably publish in some kind of scholarly article that's peer-reviewed, and I'm sure that he would win some kind of award for it. I mean, apologists love this kind of shit.
And so you've got the fact that Jesus lived. You've got the fact that Jesus died.
No, you didn't prove anything. You just made random generalized claims about evidence that we actually don't have. Just saying that Jesus died is not a real fair assessment of the claim of Jesus dying, as far as it getting us to a resurrection. Because when he says Jesus died, what he means is not just that, he died in battle, or, he died of natural causes, or he stubbed his toe and he died from, a staph infection or something. Like, what he specifically means is that he died on a Roman cross. He was crucified by Pilate at the behest of the Sanhedrin. Like, it's a very specific death that he's claiming here. And all he did was give us generalized statements about stuff that doesn't exist, like early Jewish testimony and shit like that. So I totally reject the whole dying part. Like, if he lived, then yeah, he probably died, but it's more about proving the way in which he died. Not just simply that he died. Can you imagine the gospel of Jesus if he like stubbed his toe and got an infection and died from his foot? Like, I mean, is that worse or better than dying from dysentery on the Oregon Trail? I don't know. Can you imagine that as a card for the Oregon Trail game? It's like, stubbed your toe, you're dead. Like, a snake bite, I can understand, but like stubbing your toe or dysentery, I can understand, but like stub your toe and you die? Like, what the fuck is that? But anyways, I digress. So number 3, the tomb of Jesus was empty. I get a lot of apologists make this particular claim that the tomb had to be empty. But as you'll hear from people like Bart Ehrman or Apologia or anybody else, if Jesus was crucified by the Romans, then he was most likely thrown into a mass grave, right? They wouldn't have shown him any kind of respect or deference or anything like that, or reverence rather, because I mean, he was just another Jew that they crucified, and they were doing that a lot at the time. And plus, Pilate, he didn't really fucking care. I mean, he had his soldiers slaughter a whole bunch of Jews at one time. To say that the tomb was empty means that that Jesus was buried in a tomb. Not even Paul says that Jesus was buried in a tomb. There's literally no information about where Jesus was buried if he in fact died.